Thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. I am your host, Nathan.
I'm Damon.
And today we are starting in the NFC finally. And the team we're going to start with is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So we spent this whole time talking about how the AFC is just chock-loaded full of contenders. Every team is a contender. NFC's not like that, but we're starting with a contender.
In 2021, they went 13-4. They were first in the NFC South, and they lost the divisional round to the Rams, 27-30.
In a heck of a game.
Very fun. Offensively, they were second in yards, second in points. Defensively, they were 13th in yards allowed and 5th in points allowed. Pretty good stats.
Not a whole lot to pick apart there.
No. GM is Jason Leak. I'm not sure exactly how to say his name. He's been there since 2014. That's 8 years. And personally, I feel like he's done a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about with some of these other teams, especially our last couple of videos in your division about teams in the rebuild and the difference between rebuilding a team and splashing a bunch of money at it and rebuilding a team that then free agents want to come to.
That's right.
I think this is a great example of building a Super Bowl contender by not worrying about if you're good or not. Drafted a quarterback. That quarterback didn't end up being the guy. So then they had everything built around that quarterback to be a Super Bowl contender. And Mr. Brady came a-calling, and boom, now you got rings, and you're consistently a contender year in and year out. So yeah, I think that's exactly what we're talking about, the difference when we talked about the way Houston went about this offseason versus the way Jacksonville went about this offseason. I'll talk about it more when we talk about my Bears later. I think that this is the way, he built the way we talked about Houston's doing it, where you build around a young quarterback, and then if that guy's not the guy, you can get rid of him to
bring in the best free agent ever.
Yeah, what you guys did with Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers, what they did with Tom Brady, it feels like a good formula. He was smart to build a team that Brady wanted to go to, and then he got lucky that he won the Brady sweepstakes. And but like they say, with sometimes luck is just having good preparation, and I think he prepared a team that allowed itself to be lucky by getting Brady.
Absolutely. I like that GM. Coach is Todd Bowles. He's new. The previous coach was Bruce Arians. I do like Bruce Arians. I think that there might have been a little bit of a conflict in philosophy between the way he does things and the way Tom Brady does things. And obviously in this position, when you're contending like that and you have literally the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, you're going to go with that.
Well, and Bowles, Arians, I'll believe Arians when he said one of the factors for him was he brought Bowles on. Bowles was his defensive coordinator in his Cardinals days. Bowles then got another job, didn't work out, came back, defensive coordinator here. He likes Bowles. He wanted Bowles set up to succeed, so he wanted to turn it over to him while he had Tom Brady back instead of, he was going to hang on if they were in a rebuild and wait till they rebuilt it a little bit before he turned it over to him. But because Brady came back, he wanted to give Bowles that chance to compete for a Super Bowl as a head coach. I'll take him for his word at that. I think Arians is getting older. He probably was trying to figure out the right time to exit. I don't disagree with you that there was maybe some friction in style. I think that was obvious when Brady's first year. And that was probably a factor. But I do like the fact that, I've always liked Bowles. I would have loved to have Bowles as a coach of the Bears. So I think that this is a nice thing for Bowles to have that opportunity to, straight out the gate compete for a Super Bowl. And maybe that takes some of the pressure off where it would have been a completely different gig had Brady not came back and they were rebuilding around a young quarterback.
That's great. Yeah, and to that point, like you said, setting them up for success. Brady has not dropped off to this point. We'll see if that happens, but to this point, that has not happened, and that is a recipe for success. Obviously, the most successful quarterback to ever play the game. So, free agent additions. Let's see what they did to try to help this old man with his endeavor of getting yet another Super Bowl. Free agent addition, the first is Russell Gage, wide receiver out of Atlanta. Very impressive wide receiver. I like him a lot. I did have there was some talk about us possibly getting him. I would have liked to have gotten him, but obviously he went to a team that was built to win. So
a team that, when people talk about, we had a whole conversation about whether Christian Kirk was an overpay or not. I think this is
underpay.
This is an underpay. This was a good value. And they had to get good value there because they're paying Evans and Goodwin a lot of money.
That's right.
So you have to get good value. But if you can that's a heck of a receiving core having him as your third receiver. I think.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little more when we get into the starters, but yes, absolutely. Great addition.
Yeah.
The next one is Akeem Hicks, defensive end out of Chicago. Obviously, you're familiar with him.
Yeah, I mean, I love Akeem Nicks. I would have not minded him coming back to Chicago. I don't think he fit the new system that we're bringing in as well as he did our old system. I think it was probably time for him to move on. Injuries kind of got him the last year. But when he is healthy, he is a monster. He's a disruptor. He's a force. And if they can find a good rotation, which we'll probably talk about with the draft picks, there might be a rotational piece there for him to try to keep him fresh. If you can keep him fresh and have him healthy come playoff time, he will be a factor on the defensive side of the ball because that's what he does as long as he's healthy.
Absolutely. I like that player a lot as well. So, Kiana Neal, safety out of Dallas. I think that this is a decent addition here as well. Fred Johnson, guard out of Cincinnati. Going to have to rebuild that line for that old man. You know, any kind of help that you can have in that line is going to be helpful. So,
well, and I think they lost a guard too, so this is probably just a direct replacement for the guard they lost. So.
Logan Ryan, cornerback out of the Giants. I think Logan Ryan has a ton of upside, and I think this was a good pick as well.
Yeah, he's a solid corner. He's kind of been around, right?
Yes.
Like, been around a few teams, solid corner. Nice kind of player to chase a ring with Brady.
And like you said, I mean, you know, we were talking about this a little bit before we started the video. It is a place that you'd like to bring in these veterans because, you know, you're obviously not in a rebuild. You're trying to compete right now. And
you want professionals that are ready to play for a Super Bowl, know what that means, are on board, and then
have that
when the rebuild time comes, they're expendable.
Free agent losses. This is Alex Kappa, guard, went to Cincinnati, and it looks like they just switched guards. But I think Kappa is the better one of the two.
By reputation, definitely.
Sure.
I don't watch offensive line play enough to be able to say that, but by reputation,
right,
definitely.
Reputation-wise, yeah. Jordan and Whitehead, safety, went to the Jets. O.J. Howard, tight end, went to Buffalo. And I do think he has some upside, but
it hadn't been realized yet. Sure.
Ronald Jones II, running back, went to Kansas City.
That's a good backup, but a backup.
Yep. Bradley Pinion, punter, went to Atlanta.
He's a punter.
All right, trades. They've got one. Shaq Mason, guard from New England. And they gave up a 5th round in the 22nd pick for him. So again, you got rid of a guard, you brought in one in a trade and brought one in free agency. So, draft. Round 2, number 33, you got Logan Hall, defensive end out of Houston. Really like this kid a lot. I was pretty high on Houston's defense last year, and he is definitely one of the guys that stood out when you watched them. So I liked him a lot.
And this is the player I was referring to when I said Akeem Hicks. Like, this could be an Akeem Hicks understudy. Like, he's not the same player as Akeem Hicks, but it's the same position. Like, he plays that, 3-4 defensive end, 4-3 defensive tackle, kind of hybrid, which is what Nicks does. He gets after the passer, so they'll be able to use him to keep the health there of the older player, but the older player is still with the experience, so you're not relying on a rookie. And then when it is time for that rebuild to come, when Brady does fall apart, you'll have a good young piece that's been seasoned, that knows what he's doing. So I think that's a great draft pick for them.
Absolutely, and I think he's got a lot of upside there.
Yeah, for sure.
Round 2, number 57, you got Luke Gedeke, offensive tackle out of Central Michigan. He also has a reputation of being pretty good here. I think Central Michigan has had a really good line because they had several players come out of there that was really good.
Yeah. The word on him, good athlete, maybe could use some coaching, so probably a good backup. That maybe that swing tackle guy that can fill in for injuries for now, but could definitely be a starter 2 or 3 years down the road, probably.
And again, like you pointed out, good GMing. You're kind of setting up for the future as well in case
Absolutely.
you do have this drop off. You're not going to just be stuck. So
absolutely.
Round 3, number 91, Rashad White, running back out of Arizona State. I think that this kid definitely has some upside.
I mean, that's your Ronald Jones replacement. Probably has more upside than Ronald Jones does.
I would think so.
He'll be a backup for now, but I mean, you come from Arizona State.
Wasn't the greatest team in the world.
Wasn't the greatest team, but they do run a pro style because of Herm Edwards. So it was like a more of a pro style where he got that kind of coaching, he's probably going to be able to slide in a little bit easier than some might. He's a good athlete, and one of the better points of their team was him. They relied on him a lot.
I absolutely believe he was definitely one of the better.
Yeah, so I think that's a guy, again, good backup, and then down the road might be a starter.
Absolutely. Round 4, number 106, you have Cade Otton, tight end out of Washington. And obviously you got what seems to be the retirement of Gronkowski, correct? Or has he officially come out and said it?
I don't know that it's official. It certainly seems like it.
Yeah.
But maybe he just doesn't want to go to training camps. So maybe like 2 weeks before the season starts, he'll roll out of bed and decide it's time to go team up with Tom again.
Well, I have to see that, but you've got to add tight ends, and especially when you have Brady who loves to use those tight ends, I think it's great.
And I think Otton especially, he's Gronk-like.
Yes.
He's very Gronk-like. Like he's a big guy, but he has a decent 40 if I remember right. I know at Washington, he kind of underwhelmed last year, but part of that was maybe their team. Washington's kind of been in transition. I think he was maybe even better like as a sophomore than he was as a junior and a senior.
I do believe so.
And so I think there's a lot to work with there. You might have to teach him to block a little bit better, but he's a good athlete. He's a big guy. And I think he has a good catch radius and good hands. So I think that is a good Gronk maybe not Gronk replacement, but he can do some of the things that Gronk did. So
sure.
So you'll be able to use him.
Absolutely. And round 4, number 133, you got Jake Commanda, punter out of Georgia.
That's your punter replacement. You let your punter go in free agency, so you pick up a punter in the draft.
And like we've discussed before with like the Buffalo Bills, for example, this is a team that has that benefit. They're built to win. You can fill holes and not feel like you have to stretch for anything. If you got somebody you need to get it. You know what I mean? Round 5, number 157, Zion McCollum, cornerback out of Sam Houston State.
This was one of my big sleeper guys. I love this kid. He's got good size, good athlete, great upside. Probably like a 4th or 5th corner right now, but a guy that they can groom into maybe a special team guy initially. But round 5, great upside, and again, position to gamble on a guy because your team's ready to win. So you can get a guy like this where if it was my team, I might be going, man, I hope this kid's ready to learn like right out the gate. Tampa Bay doesn't have to worry about that. They have their starters in place so you can groom this guy. And that's
the benefit of being a good team.
That's the benefit of being a good team and being a good GM and having a long-term plan.
Absolutely. Round 6, number 218, Cope Kieft. I think that's how you say it. Tight end out of Minnesota.
Don't know anything about him.
Don't know much about him either.
Unfortunately, I did not watch a lot of Minnesota last year. They weren't that fun to watch.
Oh yeah, and
I've watched them more because
like a couple years, a couple years before they were fun as all get out to watch.
Yeah.
Didn't really catch my attention last year either.
If I had to guess without knowing anything, I would guess that he's a blocking type tight end, and that's why they got him as opposed to Otton, who's more of a receiving type tight end. But I don't actually know. I'm just guessing.
Sure. Round 7, number 248, Andre Anthony, edge out of LSU. Again, don't know much about him. But
yeah, LSU was not. They were a train wreck this year, so yeah, don't know as much about them as normally. But as a 7th round pick, LSU always has athletes, so he's probably high upside. That'd be my guess.
Absolutely. Okay, now we're going to talk about the starters here. Projected starters. I want to throw that in there.
Especially this quarterback. We don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure.
If he can earn the job.
We'll see. Quarterback. Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
Last year he was 5,316 yards, 43 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 81 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Clearly Father Time's trying to catch up to him.
I actually believe these are like the best stats that he's ever had, which is crazy to think at his age that he's putting up those stats. We always talk about, my philosophy on things. And look, I'll admit this. I'm going to come out and say this and sound like an idiot, but I didn't want... When the Colts were looking for a quarterback and he was coming out, apparently we didn't want him. And I had said, look, man, the guy's going to start dropping off because of his age. You listen to guys like Max Kellerman. He's been talking about that for a long time. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The guy he hasn't slowed down yet. Now, obviously, when it starts slowing down at that age, it can happen very quickly. So we'll have to see how the year goes. But as of right now, you have to still give him the credit of being the best quarterback.
Yeah, I think the fact that he retired and then came back out of retirement tells you that he maybe is starting to see those signs. But again, like you said, at this point, much like I say with a lot of the stuff with the Patriots, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Like he gets wrapped up in that Patriot way. He, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. He's won too much.
Yeah.
He's already done it at that. Like those stats at his age is so just ridiculous that until he falls off, I'm not gonna believe that it's coming. I'm done thinking it's coming until it actually happens.
Absolutely.
And I know you feel the same.
Absolutely. Best quarterback to ever play the game. So, running back Leonard Fournette, 812 yards, 8 touchdowns, 450 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns. Very good running back.
And I think he is just going to get better. Like, for whatever reason, the Jacksonville fit wasn't right, but he seems like each year he's with Tampa, he gets a little bit better. And the kid was so good his freshman year at LSU. And then, I don't know if he stopped loving football, if he just didn't like being on the Jaguars. He definitely was not the same guy for a while there, but it seems like he's reinvented that stud running back, and those numbers. Well, we'll talk. It's like the same thing we're going to talk about on defense. There's only so much to go around. You're not going to have a 2,000-yard running back when you have a 5,000-yard passer.
That's right.
So the numbers that he has, I think, are pretty impressive, and I think there's probably more there to give if they needed to lean on him more.
I'm a big believer in Leonard Fournette. So I actually, as a Colts fan, was glad that he left the Jaguars, just to be honest about it.
Well, he wasn't the same guy with the Jaguars, though.
He had good seasons the first couple years that he did. But I hear what you're saying, and I do believe that is a factor when people don't love the game as much. It's kind of hard to hit that on some people. So, but he is doing very good for the Bucs. Wide receiver Mike Evans, 74 receptions, 1,035 yards, and 14 touchdowns. You can verify this. I have been a gigantic Mike Evans fan since A&M. Love the kid. Really, really wish we would have picked him up. We would have got him. But obviously, I've been a big fan of his in Tampa Bay.
So this is like going back to your video game days. He is the prototypical receiver that you love.
Yep.
The huge guy that has some speed, that can win the jump balls, that can just outbite you.
Yeah, 14 touchdowns. I think that kind of says it all.
That does kind of say it all. And I think, the yards are on the lower side. And I've talked to you before about, is he a number 1? Is he a good number 2? What is he exactly? He's not in the same level of A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf and those guys. But he's that next level below. And on this team with Brady, where they spread the ball around, those are fantastic numbers. And corners don't want to guard him. Safeties don't want to cover him, because he is that hybrid of big, strong, fast, good route runner, reliable hands. So, I still don't put him in that category of one of the top 10 receivers in the league, but he's definitely better than Christian Kirk. And, I'm sorry, I should stop beating that dead horse, huh?
Yeah, you should. But as far as I'm concerned, like I said, nothing bad to say about Mike Evans at all. Again, one of my favorite wide receivers, my style of wide receiver that there is in the whole league. So, one of my favorites. And then this followed up, wide receiver Chris Godwin, 98 receptions, 1,103 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Great addition to their team last year.
He's been on it for a couple years.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right, he has.
And the perfect complement to Evans. Right. All the stuff we talk about Evans, he's the other side. Yes. He's the speed guy. He's the burner. He's the guy that's going to, just be wide open on a huge play or turn a 10-yard route into a 60-yard touchdown. Those two complement each other so well. I don't know that either one of them on their own are number 1s, but together they are so good.
And when you got a quarterback like Tom Brady, you don't really have to be, the Patriots' way was.
Even with Winston, Winston threw a lot of interceptions, but those guys put up numbers even with Winston. I feel like they would put up numbers for almost anybody in the league.
Yeah.
That is a deadly duo.
It is. And then they added wide receiver Russell Gage. Last year, 66 receptions, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns out of Atlanta. Very good wide receiving core there with all 3 of those guys.
And I think Gage is a guy that, maybe a lot of fans don't know a lot about, but he stepped up with Atlanta after Julio Jones left, and there was some the Calvin Ridley stuff happens. He kind of stepped into that role and helped keep that team going. And as a third receiver, I think that's a fantastic third receiver.
Absolutely.
And like we talked about earlier, you didn't have to pay a lot for him. So overall, that's a great wide receiving core in my mind.
Absolutely. Tight end Cameron Brate, 57 receptions, 240 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Again, as we talked about, you don't have Gronkowski there, at least at the moment.
And before Gronk, Cameron Brate was a very good tight end. I think his stats aren't as good because they had Gronk, so he wasn't asked to do some of the things that Gronk was doing instead. We talked about it when we first saw those stats. Like, that is
a low amount for
a
receptions.
low average per reception thing. Obviously, he's not busting downfield on a 60-yard out route, but reliable hands, big body, and a pro's pro. He's been around for a long time on winning teams, just been a pro's pro. So I think it's a great guy for the rookies that they drafted, especially the kid from Washington, to learn from.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I like that tight end. I like the combination of Brate and the rookie. If Gronk doesn't come back, I still think they're okay there. They might lean on the wide receivers in the running game a little bit more.
But the good news is they can.
Because they have good ones there. Yes, exactly. Like we said at the start of the video, this team is built to compete for Super Bowls, and it shows. Every position group has good players.
Absolutely. Linemen, you got left tackle Donovan Smith, left guard Aaron Stiney, center Ryan Jensen, right guard Shaq Mason, and right tackle Tristan Wirfs. Very good right tackle, by the way. And they are built to protect there. And we're going to go on to defense here. These are projected starters again. Left defensive end is Akeem Hicks. Last year with the Bears, he was 25 tackles, 3.5 sacks. He did have some injury issues and only played 9 games.
Yeah.
So, 3.5 sacks in 9 games. Yeah, he's a good addition here. Nose tackle Vita Vea, 33 tackles, 4 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 3 pass deflects at the nose tackle position.
Dude's a
I
monster.
like those stats.
He's a monster.
Right defensive end, William Golston, the 36 tackles and 4.5 sacks. Linebacker Joe Tryon Shawinka, he was a rookie last year. I'm sure I messed that name up. 29 tackles, 4 sacks, 3 pass deflects. Left inside linebacker Devin White, 128 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 3 pass deflects.
Really good player.
Right inside linebacker Levante David, 97 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 3 pass deflects. Linebacker Shaquille Barrett, 51 tackles, 10 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 interception, and 4 pass deflects.
Okay, before you go on the second check, just talk about that front seven real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of were talking about this before. I think we talked about it even like during the season some last year a bit. Like you made the comment, like Devin White doesn't seem as good as I thought he would be coming out of Michigan. Larry David isn't as good right now as he used to be. Well, when you look at all the sacks that those guys collectively get, like everybody's got like 3, 4, 5 sacks, and then Barrett, the sack guy, has 10.
Yeah.
So it's just like
you get pressure from everywhere.
I mean, the pressure can come from anybody. Anybody can get a sack. They all take care. Like that is just a extremely solid. It's not as sexy as like those, like the Raiders and the Chargers that have that sack duo, or that we talked about in some of those other teams in the AFC. It's not as like, oh, those guys will get after the quarterback. It's not Khalil Mack and Bosa, but just solid guys up and down that front seven.
All over.
Everybody's going to get you a handful of sacks. Everybody's going to be sure tacklers. They're going to disrupt. Yeah, so I think that's a extremely well-built front seven, even if it's not as flashy as some.
Yeah, and then you got like the forced fumbles in there too, fumble recoveries and stuff like that. I mean, I really like that defense a lot, exactly like you said. It's just across the board good. So then you get into their secondary here. We got the left cornerback Jamal Dean, 53 tackles, 2 interceptions. Safety Antoine Winfield Jr., 88 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions. Logan Ryan, come over from the Giants, 117 tackles, 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 8 pass deflects. Very solid play there. Right cornerback Carlton Davis, 39 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, 1 interceptions, and 11 pass deflects. Again, when we talked about the overall numbers, fifth in points allowed. I mean, this is a good team. This is a game.
It's a good team, and then what we're doing, the whole offseason, how the offseason looked, this is what it is. This guy, the GM, like we said at the top, he built a team to win. It needs Brady to do it, but you know what? Yeah. Everybody, it's really hard to win without a high-level quarterback. So,
and really, when you look at it, unlike when we talked about the AFC, how loaded it was and how many people was, it is really just a couple of teams here in the AFC.
They're almost definitely gonna win their division.
Absolutely,
they're almost definitely gonna make it to, definitely the second week of the playoffs for sure.
Yeah.
Where with the AFC, we're like, the good team might not even make the playoffs. This one, they're going to make the playoffs. They're built right.
And they could very well
win the Super
Bowl.
They can win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it would not surprise me at all.
They're built right. And you know what I like too? I was thinking about it as you were going through the starters. Both sides of the ball, you got a good mixture of young and old. You got a couple of young players there. Like you talked about the safety, Winfield. Second, those stats were ridiculous for a young player. So they got young guys to be excited about if you're a fan that can keep that young blood going. When Brady does finally fall off or retire and they have to rebuild, I think they're going to be able to do a quick rebuild.
Absolutely.
I think so. When you look at what they did in the offseason, the number one thing was get Brady back, obviously. But, the Gage was a nice pickup. A couple draft picks were nice pickups. There's nothing really to fault. It is kind of like what we said with Buffalo. When you built a team correctly and you get to that point that you're a contender, then all you're doing is just
refilling.
BPA in the draft, finding guys that can fill in as your veterans age out, and taking a punter in the 5th round because it's better than overpaying the punter that all of a sudden wants to be a free agent and get overpaid.
And those are good problems to have.
Good problems to have, but because he's been so good at building this team, he did a good job continuing to build it, and so I think you can't say it's the best offseason, but it wasn't a bad offseason. And
yeah, I think just status quo.
Status quo. And the other thing too, you lose Arians, you turn it over to Bowles. Bowles he's been with the team as a defense coordinator. It should be a seamless transition. He's had head coaching experience before, and like you said, on the offensive side of the ball, it's probably Brady's. It's Brady's ball to run with anyway, right? So it doesn't really matter who they
It's like they used to say about Peyton. You know what I mean? It's easy to look good when that's your quarterback. It's easy to look good when Tom Brady's your quarterback.
Yeah. So I think that team, it was a compete. It was a good offseason, and have fun, Tampa fans, because you're in a great time during your franchise's history right now.
Enjoy it. Okay. Well, thank you for giving us a watch. If you got anything out of this video, give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Go ahead and hit them comments. If you look at the comment section of the Jacksonville thing, I'm very willing to talk about whatever you want to talk about. But if you're going to come at us, if you're going to tell us that we're idiots and we're morons, bring something more than just, I feel good about my team. Okay, Tampa fans, you could do that. But we're not hating on your team anyway. But bring something to us. We want the Lowry Sports Rhetoric. We want discussion. We want interaction with other fans. That's why we're doing this. We're not trying to get rich or inform the masses about anything or break any stories. We just want to have conversation with other sports fans. That's what we like. So throw it in the comments and let's do it.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving us a watch, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.